everyone. Welcome back to the Confident Dancer YouTube channel. I'm very excited to have a conversation with Natalie Orr today about body-based intelligence and basically how we can use this concept to improve our lives as dancers. So welcome, Natalie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for another conversation with you because we always go fun places and we have somewhat of a similar perspective, so it's always really fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I will put your information down below on where to follow you on Instagram and your podcast because we've had a conversation on your podcast
Yes.
before. That was so exciting and so fun to talk to you. So we'll link all that below so you guys can find Natalie. But let's start with hearing more about you, what you do, and how you got into this passion for talking about body-based intelligence.
Yes. Okay. So I was a dance teacher for 16 years. A few of the years at the beginning, I was professional dancer in like Latin fusion styles. So that's a bit of my dance background. But 4 years ago, I started life coaching. And during the process of training to life coach and going into the mind, I realized like, hold on though, what about the body? Of course, as a dancer, you're always kind of thinking about your body. And so I was like, where does this all fit in? And that's where body based intelligence kind of came in. I have to say that the in for me was something called embodiment. And I kind of classify embodiment as one of the parts of body based intelligence, along with a few other aspects like understanding our bodies from like kind of a scientific evolutionary perspective, because I think that also helps us understand what's going on sometimes when our body's doing something that we're telling it something else and something different happening. We're like, what's happening here? My body is not obeying. And that's a very interesting concept for dancers, I think, because this idea of my body must obey what I'm asking it to do is one of the reasons why for me personally, I got interested in body-based intelligence because I was like, is my body intelligent or is only my brain intelligent? So this was one of the big questions for me that kind of led me into this work. And then as I went on my own kind of self-discovery and self-healing journey, there were many aspects to this, but it helped me heal my own relationship to my own body. It helped me appreciate it, accept it fully as it is, love it through all the different evolutions of the different dance styles I've done and different things, and see it changing and adapting and evolving and sometimes getting worse at things. And that's an important part of body-based intelligence too. And also for me, just personally, things about my health. So body-based intelligence is one of the main things that helped me heal my endometriosis, which is a chronic wound condition, which I didn't think was possible because I was told it's either the pill or surgery for you. Yeah. And I was like, there must be another way. And so it's been a few years, like certainly wasn't overnight. It's not a quick fix like surgery, but it's been such a rewarding process for my health. And then finally, I think for my dancing specifically for me has been coming to a place of more freedom with my dancing, because when you trust your body and you understand what's going on in the moments where the mind and body might have different priorities or different things going on, it's so much easier to navigate those and to accept ourselves, and also to be free to, for example, express more and just enjoy it more. That was another thing. It was like, am I allowed to be serious about this but also enjoy it at the same time and find ways of exploring and playing and not being. I was a little bit of a perfectionist, and when I say a little bit, a lot of a perfectionist through lots of my dance training. So that freedom as well was something that I really welcomed as I got more familiar with body-based intelligence.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you articulated that so well, and I just got so energized talking to you because I can relate to this experience, which I feel is quite common, of feeling like the mind is the boss and my body is the faithful employee that should do anything my mind says. But what happens when I'm really physically very tired or in pain, but I still want to perform in ballet class? In past years, before I repaired my mind-body connection, which is a consistent work in progress, I would have so much self-judgment or resentment towards my body for not doing exactly what my mind wanted to do. This actually led to consistent injuries and chronic injuries that in the end, after getting medical attention for those things, I noticed that those injuries did not fully heal until I started to repair the connection between the mind and the body, which for me looked like actually listening to my physical instincts, taking them seriously, listening compassionately, taking care of my body as if it had equal value and priority to what my mind wanted to do, and treating the two like they're teammates instead of like master slave, honestly, which is like harsh language, but that is how I was acting. And like even with brutality, like beating my body into submission, especially in ballet, I feel like that mindset is so common. So I would love to just define what body-based intelligence is to you before we talk about how we can apply this in our lives.
Of course. So people have different definitions, but my own personal definition that I like to use is that body-based intelligence is our awareness of, connection to, and care for our own body, other bodies, and our celestial body, which is planet Earth. The last two are slightly more on a tangent, I'd say. I know today we're going to focus more on that for ourselves. So awareness, connection, and care for our own body. But I think even just starting there will also help the other two. Yes. Interestingly. Yeah. So I think in terms of awareness, it's exactly what you said, which is what's my body actually telling me right now? Being aware of the pain signals rather than this pain shouldn't be here right now. This pain is inconvenient. I don't want this pain. How do I shut it off? How do I distract myself? How do I the other way that we can sometimes do this, and dancers are very good at doing this, is if you can create enough adrenaline and cortisol in your body, and the way to do that is like very strenuous physical exercise is one way to do that. That numbs the pain deliberately, because we used to need that for survival moments in the past, where if we did have to run really fast to get away from something, or we had to fight to protect something or whatever it was, these instincts are built into our biology for really good reason, but then we trickily learn to harness them for things which aren't life or death. And if we do that over and over and over again, we're kind of starting to deplete our body, because our body also needs time for rest and recovery. So while it's really great to like push hard and work really hard and know that we can, when we need to, really go to the limits of our body's capabilities, like there's a beauty in that, but there's also the other side where we need to also listen to, when is this pain and not just discomfort? When is this exhaustion and not just I'm tired because I've done a good day's training? So it's starting to really tune into those things and being aware of when we're deliberately numbing ourselves to those signals.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. And I think it would be really interesting to talk about the language of the body. Like, how do we listen to it? What are some of those signals and how do we respond to them? And I'll just briefly share a story of how there were multiple years in my life where I was dealing with knee pain, but in my mind, I knew what my goals were. I wanted to be a professional dancer. I wanted to consistently be dancing so I could take advantage of the performance opportunities I had. And so in my mind, I was like, I can't stop. I can't take a break. I can't do that. And so, of course, the body it's so great that it's designed to send us signals for our ultimate well-being. But I interpreted the pain signals as something that is bad. It was distracting me from where my mind wanted me to go in life. And so I just needed to silence those things. And I even treated injury recovery as the measure of success is being pain-free, instead of having a long-term sustainable career in dance. I just thought as soon as I could just stop hurting, like that's all I want. And so of course we have solutions for this: pain medication.
Yep.
I got to a point where I obviously do not recommend this. I'm so thankful it didn't turn into severe stomach ulcers. That can happen for people. Like it happened with my sister. I was taking 4 or 5 ibuprofen a day because I was so insistent on not stopping. But what also is really interesting in hindsight, I did not recognize this in the moment because I just didn't have awareness or context. And I didn't know anyone as like a 19-year-old who was talking about this stuff. I was
Of
not
course, me
like
neither at that age.
development. I was just like ballet is life. Um, I was also tremendously shut off from my emotions and my intuition.
They always go together.
Yes.
If you're not in tune with your physical pain, you're not in tune with your emotional pain either. So that makes total
Right.
sense.
And so then I developed a fear of negative emotions. I didn't want to feel them at all. And it was almost like, that I'm sure you've used the analogy or heard of it before when people are like, you know what it feels like to try to push a beach ball underwater? And you keep trying to hold it down, but it wants to like come up. I would have like huge emotional outbursts instead of being emotionally regulated throughout the day. And it would happen like every couple months, but it would be like a total breakdown. So anyway, I'm sure that dancers listening can relate to some aspect of that experience. And I just want to provide so much hope through our conversation that clearly you've experienced so much vitality and healing through repairing that connection. And I can say for sure I have too. So hey there, I hope you're really enjoying this video, but I just need to ask you something really quick. Is self-doubt really just sucking the joy out of dancing for you? Is being in your head and being self-critical and not feeling good enough, like even if you look fine on the outside and you're just plowing along, is that affecting your ability to perform and enjoy dance while you're at it? If those mental struggles sound familiar, or others like performance anxiety, perfectionism, comparing yourself to other dancers, any of those things, if those are impacting your ability to perform your best and feel your best consistently, then you don't have to keep struggling. I'm so passionate about this, and I want to talk to you about the Confident Dancer Coaching Program. This is a coaching program that focuses on the mental side of dance, where you and I can work together individually to truly help you to build the belief in yourself, let go of all the negative programming in your mind that's impacting your ability to perform in your experience, and help you truly build the confidence to thrive as a dancer and fulfill your personal potential. If that's something that you want, you can click the link in my description box to visit kirstenkemp.com, learn more about the Confident Dancer Coaching Program, what it includes, how it works, read incredible testimonials from past clients who've worked with me, and schedule a free 30-minute consultation where you and I can connect, talk about your goals and challenges, absolutely no strings attached, and just see if working together would be a great fit for you and your goals. If that's something you're interested in, definitely take advantage of that free consultation. Give yourself a chance to truly thrive as a dancer, and I hope to talk to you soon. I also want to just briefly say that my group coaching program, the Confident Dancer Collective, will be opening doors for enrollment again soon. This will be a new and improved version. Details will come out shortly, but I want to invite you to check out the description box and sign up for my email newsletter, where you can be the first to just really stay tuned on the details of the new and improved program and know when enrollment opens. There will be early bird enrollment bonuses, so be in the know, sign up for my email newsletter, and that is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. Let's move on with it. So, where was I? How to speak the language of the body.
Yes, well, thank you so much. It's so nice to hear personal experiences though for people, because sometimes this can get a bit generic and a bit like, okay, we're talking very much about bodies in general, but hearing individual stories is so powerful, because if you're like, well, she managed to do this real thing that I also struggle with, then it might be possible for me. But in general, the language of the body, if we take it at its base level, it's very primitive. It's the same as many other animals. Those people who have pets, you'll see this in them as well. We're mainly motivated, and communication happens mainly through pain and pleasure. And it's really as simple as that sometimes. So how do we actually tune into that? We have to allow them. It's what you said. It's stop holding the ball under the water and just allow it to come up and see what's there. And the amazing thing, I think, especially for emotional pain, is that we're so resistant to feeling it, but usually the overwhelm of the emotional experience passes very quickly. There's some data to suggest it's like 90 seconds is like that time where you're like, I cannot be with this any longer, and within 90 seconds it's passed. And you may still be, for example, crying, but it's not that uncontrollable, unconsolable crying. So even if we can just hold on to that and think, okay, if I allow myself to feel whatever is here, it's only going to be that feeling of I can't really do this for like 90 seconds. Probably sometimes it's less. Sometimes it's like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I already feel a bit better and I still feel sad,
Yeah.
or I still feel angry, or I still feel whatever it is, but I can be with this now. So it's so often it's just getting started, isn't it? It's like the takeoff, and then once you're up in the air, it's like, okay, I can do this. So it's giving ourselves I want to say it's about giving our bodies the right condition. One of the rules that I always say about the body is always trying to heal us. It's also always trying to protect us and communicate with us. There's a few others, but when the fact that the body is always trying to heal us only is relevant if we give it the right conditions. And so that is resting or stopping or removing ourselves from the situation that is creating the pain. I mean, it's so obvious, but we don't do it. We so often don't do it because, coming back to this conversation about, I like to say that the mind shouts and the body whispers. So if you're not listening, you will miss the whispers, and then it'll get gradually louder until the pain is literally screaming at you and you can't ignore it anymore. True. But your body will do that process gradually, whereas the mind has its own agenda very well laid out. Like, this is what we're going for, this is what we want, this is what success means, this is what other people expect of me, this is what I expect of myself, which of course has come through other people's expectations as we've grown up. We're so sure that, oh, this is me, my own dream that just emerged like innately, but so often it's influenced by what other people want for us, and how we feel that we're going to be loved, really. So once we understand, okay, the mind has its own agenda, but it's as you said, how can we marry, how can we come to a point where I can feel simultaneously what's in the body and take into account the things that I want to achieve in my life, and do something where the path can go together, instead of just, we also don't obviously want to I don't really need to say this to dancers, but to some other human beings, we don't always need to do just exactly what the body wants to do. Like, we don't need to just lie and watch Netflix, we don't just need to eat cake, and we don't just need to do all these things. When you understand from an evolutionary perspective what your body's trying to do, which is to keep you alive and keep you fed and all these things, and you're like, oh, we don't live in that world anymore. It's actually not, we're not at risk of starvation, we're not at risk of constant violence, we're not at risk of whatever. So once we understand that, when we can see that the body has its own agenda as well, that sometimes will take us off. So the mind does too, but there is this middle path, I guess, where they can both more or less agree, okay, this is where we want to go. And part of it is prioritizing long term over short term. Because when we're prioritizing short term, it was like you were saying about, I just wanted to get better, I just wanted to be pain free, I just wanted to be able to carry on, instead of thinking more about the sustainability of a career. And the same thing for me, like avoiding doing some of the healing work that I needed to do. I just wanted to be able to get on with the things I wanted to do in that moment, whether it was like go out and see my friends or go to dance class or whatever it was. So when we take that longer approach as well, the body is absolutely necessary in order for us to understand what's going to be sustainable long term. Because the mind can live in fantasy land.
Yeah.
Like, the mind doesn't really have to deal with the reality of the physical. Yes. So it can live in this world of like, if I just carry on, this is all going to be fine. And we can tell ourselves so many stories. And it's part of the beauty of the mind, is that we can dream and we can create, you know, incredible futures for ourselves that we can work towards. But if the body is not involved, then that's the problem. Then we can kind of self-sabotage accidentally.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. So many bombs that I hope people are taking in. And as you're talking, one thing I knew I wanted to hit on in this conversation is what then stops dancers from taking advantage of the harmony that's available. And I really want to hear your unbiased thoughts, but I just can't help but share like one that's just screaming at me, which is our trust issues. I hear it so often I've heard it from myself, I've heard it from fellow dancers, I've heard it from clients I've coached, that there can be so many concerns that we could label as trust issues. Like, for example, I'm afraid that if I listen to my body, I will become completely undisciplined, that it will go in the complete opposite direction of where my mind wants me to go, that I'll become fat and lazy, that or emotionally if I start paying attention to my emotions, I'm honestly so afraid, like if we're really honest with ourselves, a lot of times what comes up is I'm afraid that if I look at it, I'm scared of what I'll find. I'm scared of what my emotions will tell me. And I've been very interested in my own life and in my coaching practice in this relationship between trust and surrender, and how I've consistently seen that people who live lives of well-being and fulfillment and success in the way that they define it, they tend to be this interesting mix of very surrendered to change. There's flexibility, there's a trust that allows them to be surrendered to the path that unfolds, but there's also a discipline, of course. And what allows us to surrender is trust. It's not just saying, I'm okay if like the worst thing ever happens to me. It's a trust that even if it does, overall things will work together for good. And so, anyway, I imagine that trust is a huge roadblock to actually even being open to hearing the signals that are coming from your emotions and your physical sensations. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your
Yeah.
opinion on that. And if you notice any other things that stop dancers from taking advantage of this.
Yeah. Well, first, let's just acknowledge that the mind, as well as the body, is always trying to protect us. So the mind telling us this story of I'm going to be lazy and I'm not going to do anything, that's our mind trying to protect us. Thank you so much for like trying to help us here. And at the same time, it's not 100% wrong in the sense that our body, especially if we're really in need of rest, our body might really be like, I really need like a few extra days. So this isn't about laziness. This is about the discomfort of letting someone else's expectations of us down or our own expectations down. It's not really about laziness, because when you really know yourself, the thing is that the body is capable of so many different things, and there are so many competing internal sensations. We talked about pain and pleasure, and they're quite often intermingled, and there's other things happening, and then there's all the complex emotions on top of those. So the body doesn't only want one thing either, just like the mind doesn't only want one thing either. And so there may be that part of you that's like, I do just want to sit and watch Netflix for a whole week and eat cake. Maybe that is a real thing. Yeah. If that is the case, it's likely that what your body is telling you is not, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's likely what your body's telling you is, I need to rest and I need more nutrition. Mm-hmm. Not cake necessarily, yeah. But maybe that is the body's message. And so when we can learn to decode it by understanding, this is why it's not only embodiment, but also body-based intelligence. We can understand the intelligence of what the body's trying to do and like decode it. That also helps us to not judge what's coming out from the body, because our bodies are animals. Like, we are human animals, and so there will be things that we don't like about what our body's up to. We'll be like, why do you have to be like that? But at this thing, it's like, I'll give a silly example, but sometimes I see a really good looking guy and I'm like, nice, but I'm married, and that has nothing to do with what I would ever actually do in real life. But I'm like, oh, body, you're so naughty or whatever. So there's just also this acceptance of, okay, my body has its own agenda, which is really to survive and reproduce. That's not what I have to do with my life. But as long as I can understand this is part of what my body's trying to do, now let's work together on this middle path. So there's something around, I think that's why it's difficult to trust. So I don't want to be like, if you can't trust your body, you're silly. No, you're clever to be careful and cautious, because the body is doing slightly different things to what you might want to be doing. And so again, it's about this like compromise, and it's exactly what you said, a mixture of surrender to what the body signals are and discipline in saying, but these are really the practices that I want to commit to, rather than this is the outcome that I have to achieve. It's slightly different than these are the practices that I commit to, whether that's training or whatever, but also with a bit of flexibility, of course. So I think that you're absolutely right. Trust is a really big one. What's something else that kind of holds people back from it? I think in general, just to say, in the dance world, because pain is such a big part of training, And it's that line that we talked about between discomfort and pain. It's normal that you don't want to feel all of it. It's normal that you don't want to feel your toes at the end of a point class. It's normal that you don't want to, whatever it is. Like, it's normal. And at the same time, that's not to say, so you should therefore feel absolutely everything, but we should become aware of when are we numbing and when do we not need to numb? Because it's, as you said, this link between also physical sensations and emotions are physical sensations. People sometimes think, oh, they're just in my head. But if you notice, when you feel fearful, you're likely to get certain characteristics. Yes, right. So either tension, or the heart rate increases, or, you know, some people get like the blood goes out of their fingers because it's all going into the muscles so we can run or fight or whatever it is. So emotions do have a physical component to them. And when you shut off physical pain, you're also shutting off emotions, as we said. So that also might be part, and you never know, is it the chicken or the egg? It may be that we're trying to avoid the pain of dancing, or it may be that we're trying to avoid the pain of something that happened in our emotional life, and that has led to this other thing as well. So bringing ourselves into survival mode is a way that we deal with both of those things. And what I also want to say is that if you don't trust this process and you don't feel like you trust your body yet, you might not have enough support around you. And so it's also not necessary like step into surrender just because that's the right thing to do. But do you have people that if you do surrender and it turns out that you need to like go to bed for 3 days, that will come in and check on you and bring you food and then get you up and be like, are you ready now to like go and do the other thing? And just to share, like in my own life, when I really did some of this work, I realized I was tired and I did rest for a while and I really slowed down, and then I sped back up because my body was like, I'm good now. Okay, let's go. And the thing about dancers is like your body's never going to be wanting to be still and silent for the rest of its life. We love to move. Like, this is a joy for us. So it will inevitably, of course, come back. But it's the fear of change, isn't it? I mean, it's usually back to that. Yeah. I'm scared to change. I'm scared that something different will happen. I'm scared that I won't know how to deal with it. I'm scared that other people are going to judge me. I'm scared that I'll be rejected or I'll miss out on opportunities. So again, compassion for these thoughts. Okay, this is normal. This is fine. This is my mind trying to protect me from changing something that I already know is working towards what I'm going to. But then we have to look at, is it really working or is the body suffering? So it's all very complex, but hopefully some of these muddled thoughts will help people to kind of see what might be going on for them.
Yeah. Oh, this is making so much sense, at least to me. I think also they make sense in general, and I think dancers are getting so much from this. But yeah, I've just been able to see, as you talk about each of these concepts, direct applications in my own life in times when I just didn't know about this stuff. And one quick note I want to make about trust that I hope will be encouraging and helpful for dancers is that trust in part is something that you can gain through reflection, let's say, in contemplation, in questioning your narratives, in making sense of things internally, just in your thoughts. But I do believe that the ultimate way to gain trust is, we could see it in the metaphor of a trust fall. You know, you have to actually lean back into it to see that people are there. But if you just stand there and you have this group of people behind you, there's still room to doubt that they're going to catch you.
Yeah.
So you can, you know, in using this analogy, I guess, of the trust fall, you can, of course, stand there and look at each of the people and think about their individual track records, let's say, assuming you know them. And you can collect that as evidence that you can reasonably trust them to catch you. But there will always be this little bit of doubt that you can find, well, I've fallen into their arms before, so I don't really know if I'm going to be able to trust them. And the only thing that will eventually close that gap is leaning back into it. And so I think with our bodies, I can share a personal example of, I've noticed that I've had friends that have retired years and years ago. And I still dance, but I don't dance full time professionally, of course, anymore. And so I've noticed friends that, let's say they retired 10 years ago. I'll still, go out to coffee with them and there will be donuts around. And I think I genuinely have no problem eating a donut, because the past me for sure would have been like, it's gonna make me fat. But I've just kind of come to this place of, through time, learning through building evidence, that when I eat a donut and I pay attention, I find pleasure in one donut. I genuinely don't find pleasure overall in the big picture from two donuts, because I just feel like gross throughout the day. I feel really thirsty because I ate a lot of sugar. I might get a headache from the sugar, but like one donut, I feel great. And so, because of listening to my body, I have this trust that I can eat the donut, I can enjoy one, but I just genuinely, from an aligned place, I don't want to. And let's say comparing that to a friend who maybe hasn't gone through that process of becoming aware of their body and being in tune. Obviously, no judgment for it, but I can see the stark contrast in them talking while they're eating. Oh, you have so much discipline. I know I'm being so bad, and they're eating too, and maybe they don't even feel good, but it's this whole like guilt complex of like, I can't trust myself around it because like, oh, I hope that's making sense. There's just so much dissonance instead of trust.
Yeah, totally. And it's back to the mind, because the mind is deciding, oh, this is, I feel guilty about this, or this is bad, or there are stories around it, rather than, and what you just explained there that you do as well is that you don't only listen to your body in the moments when there's like pain, but you listen to it as much as possible. I won't say all the time, because it's very difficult to do it perfectly, but after eating the second donut and then still being tuned in to what's going on, because those are the moments when we're like, oh, I can tune out now, like I've just eaten a donut, I'm just going to sit down and I'm not going to pay attention to my body anymore. And I think like food specifically, because this is a really big one for me in healing my endometriosis, I ate gluten my whole life. I thought it was fine, like pasta was one of my favorite foods. And then eventually, when I learned about body-based intelligence and I learned about the concept of me-search as well, as opposed to research of like, research is back to the mind again. Science says this, therefore my body must be like this. Me-search is, how actually is my body in my lived subjective experience? What do I actually feel? When do I feel that? What have I done just before or a day before, whatever it is? And something that I'll say to people watching or listening, if they want to do some me-search, is if you're a woman, please do your me-search over the space of a month, because we need that long in order to go through our full hormonal cycle and see how we actually feel doing a new practice or taking something out or whatever it is, replacing something with something else, whether that is a habit or a food or whatever it is. Please try it for a full month, because that's how our body works. And we need to actually be able to give it time to show us what's going on. And I remember that the very first time that I'd done a few days of like, oh, I won't eat any wheat today, or I'll, like buy only gluten-free or whatever. Didn't really notice anything, but when I did it for a whole month, my period was so much less painful the next month. It totally blew my mind. Wow. And the reason why I eventually figured out, oh, this is probably what I need to do for a full month, is because I started to pay attention to how my digestion was a few hours after I'd eaten. Because when you've just eaten, it's in your stomach. That's not really when the stuff's going to happen unless you've eaten something that's poisonous. Yeah. Like in that moment, you're like, I'm full, the serotonin's pumping around my body, all good. But that's why this thing of the feedback from the body, if it can continue longer, we get a lot more information from it. So that's just something that I'd say for any women listening. And then also, just if I can just mention the menstrual cycle for a moment, because this is part of our body. This is not, whether or not you're going to choose to use it to have children or not, completely fine. But our body, even if we make the conscious choice in our mind, oh, I don't want to have children, the body is not going to like eject our uterus. It would actually be better if it would do that, because it would actually save us a lot of energy each month. But as I said, the body is actually not the slave to the mind. In some ways, it's a teammate, and in other ways the body takes precedent. The only reason we have such a big brain, well, there's many reasons, but a big one of it is the incredible movement that human beings are capable of doing. One of the movements being language, and our ability to make all these incredibly intricate movements with our larynx and our tongue and everything. Dance is another one, which is like quite special to human beings. So our body must take precedent in some of these ways. Mm-hmm. And for dancers, what I would really just encourage, and I hope this helps some people listening, which is you are not the same in every single week of your monthly cycle. And I know that the dance world is set up imagining that our bodies are like male bodies and that we can train exactly the same intensity during every single day.
We live in a man's world.
As long as you know, listen, today I'm actually on my period, and so today I'm going to focus a little bit more on my port de bras or on my musicality or on my expression. And today is not the day to be hammering like whatever, the stuff that requires a lot of power or the stuff that's going to require extra energy. Leave that for your ovulation week and enjoy it and see how amazing it is to really get those gains in those weeks. So we can totally use our biology. It's not, it doesn't go against us. It's just that if we work with it and we follow the waves of how it works, we can actually get more from it, if that makes sense. Yes. Like there's a lot of evidence that we're very intuitive during our periods. So it's a great time to actually tap into like that emotional part of dance. So again, it's just playing with this and figuring out what works for you, what you can do during different times and how to. And then I think the final part of this is that lots of your dance teachers and lots of people in your life are not trained in body-based intelligence, and they're not going to get it. But as long as you are clear why you're doing it and why it is important for you to listen to your body, even if the other people start to think like, oh, she's a bit lazy or like, why is she doing that? As long as you know it's because I care for my body, because this is my only home. I mean, the earth is obviously our home as well, but this is our home. Like this is also, as a dancer, like this is your instrument. This is everything. So the more that we can take care of it and understand it, even if other people don't understand what we're doing, that's still like, I just want to empower people to know that you're allowed to do that. I encourage you to do it.
I'm so grateful that you brought up our cycles as women, because I think secretly I've been like really wanting an excuse to talk about it, because it's like a recent deep dive that I've gone into as a 29-year-old woman. No shame around that. I just say my age to invite people that it's never too late. And so practical tip, if anyone is looking for a really good like cycle tracking app, I found Flow to be very, very good compared to others that I found. And being able, it's been so incredibly empowering and great for me in allowing myself to have self-understanding and self-compassion, which is an area that I naturally resist. I resist having compassion towards myself due to life experiences that I've had that have very much affirmed this highly masculine discipline, push it all aside, get the job done mentality. I've been rewarded for that many times in my life. But anyway, so tracking, I will say, my symptoms throughout the month, what's going on with my body, has given me so much in the space of a few months, and allowing me to plan my month and my creative activities, my social time, my physical activities, according to when I will be most able to participate fully in those things. And in the beginning, I was quite resistant to being that flexible with myself, because I just thought, again, with the joke, that's not really a joke. We live in a man's world, and other people are still going to expect the same outputs from me every day. It's like, yes. But there is some level of autonomy that I have over my expectations with myself. Yeah. It is so helpful to know during the times in the month where maybe I have a harder time being with emotional regulation, let's say. Oh my gosh, I used to not be aware that I was having a mood swing. And so I'd be like, what's wrong with me? My whole life is falling apart. now I just want to cry all the time. And when I didn't know what was happening, I just thought something terribly wrong has happened. But now that I know, and I've been able to learn more about, let's say, times when lots of emotion comes up for me, it's been so cool to be able to use that awareness to reframe it and say, I'm experiencing so much emotion right now, but it's not like my mind is making it up. This is actually all the emotion I've suppressed over the last month, that my mental capacity, I've had the mental capacity to suppress it. Now I don't. But that's actually a gift because I kind of have to deal with it now. But it's a gift that if I do engage with processing the emotions and the thoughts and feelings that are coming up, I am so much of a better person for that the rest of the month. So anyway,
Yeah, I love that. Can I say one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like one tiny little thing to add to that, because it's so important. What you just said is so beautiful. The fact of like not realizing it and kind of berating yourself for having those feelings, and then understanding like, oh, well, at least I know now why, and let me work with that. And then there's another, whoops, sorry guys. Then there's another level. There's another level to that, which is it's something that I say is like when we're on our period, unless there's other hormonal issues going on, which there might be because there are so many like endocrine disruptors now and lots of things going on in our external environment. But if it's just the kind of natural mood swings that happen around our period, what happens is that our BS meter is highly attuned at that time. Yes. And we start to notice things that we should have said something about earlier in the month. But when we're a little more agreeable and we're feeling pretty good, we're like, I'll just let that slide. So your period is really this chance to be like, I'm going to address that. Once I'm feeling like when I'm back into my follicular phase, like I'm going to address that thing with that person or this thing in my life that I want to just arrange it so it suits me better or whatever. So I empower people to listen to those things as well. Like we don't need to gaslight ourselves into, oh, this is me because I'm an emotional woman or whatever. Like our emotions are there to protect us. Yeah. This has been the theme, really.
Yeah, and it's so sad that there's this narrative around like the crazy woman who's like uncontrollable. Like that's so not the case. And when I've been operating as if I'm a man in my life and denying my cycle, there was so like all of the strengths that come with being like a highly intuitive woman. I was shut off from those things.
100%, me too.
Like so proud of how emotionally stable I was every single day. No, I was just shut off. Yeah, I was fully operating in my gifts.
100%. It's the same as my story. Yeah, it's so relatable.
We should do a whole episode on the cycle.
It's so fascinating, and it's so fun that like more people are talking about this now, because it's just so empowering for us when we know. And I came to it really late as well. Like I think I was like 30 or something, but now it's just totally changed my life. Yeah,
that's great. So I think it would be great to just round up this episode in just sharing some practical tips, like what can dancers start to do in their lives to leverage body-based intelligence for their good?
Yes. So the first thing that I've already mentioned is me search. So I'll just say that again. That is you noticing when I do this thing, what happens after, and not just immediately after, but paying a little bit more attention. And if you can, tracking things across like a full month for your cycle. But in terms of something really practical that I do and I find it really helpful is a body scan. So for dancers, we will probably hold tension in our bodies even when we're not in the dance studio. In the dance studio, it's very helpful to have your abs very much engaged and have everything nice and da 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 da. But when you're in a rest or digest state, which is what we need to be in for healing and recovery cannot happen when we're in survival mode. That's built in, okay? It's supposed to be like that, because if you're trying to escape from something, you don't need to be healing simultaneously, and your body can't really do that. So something that really helps to calm our bodies down in the moments when we don't need to be dancing, and we don't need to be doing whatever else. I used to do this before bed, and now that I'm a little bit better, I can do it whenever I need it during the day. But you lie down and you just scan the parts of your body. So you like start with your forehead. Okay, so you can do this now as we're talking. If I relax my forehead, was there tension there? What about behind my eyes? What about my jaw? Am I clenching my jaw right now? Is my tongue soft? And then we just keep going down like, okay, do I have tension in my shoulders right now? Can I release that a little bit? And then a really big area for lots of dancers and women is, can I release all of my abdominals? Can I allow my belly to be soft and round? And that's like, no, we can't do that.
Oh my gosh.
It's illegal. It's
Maybe
not illegal.
this is TMI, but like also as a dancer, we're always like pulling up all the time. And the first time, I think I was like 24, the first time someone was like in a Pilates class, relax your pelvic floor. I was like, what?
How to do that? Can I
did
do
not
that?
know how tight that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So.
It's such a beautiful example. Yeah. So, like the roundness and releasing the tension in the hips and the pelvic floor, all of these things, and then just allowing your body, especially if you're lying down, but even if you're sitting down, allowing your body to be as heavy as possible. That means that you allow yourself, it's kind of surrender. You allow yourself to be fully supported by the bed. You're not feeling like I have to hold myself together. You don't. Your skin will do that. Allow yourself to like just lean back into the bed and be fully supported. So that is one of my favorite practices, especially for dancers, is the body scan.
So good. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited by our conversation, which I knew I would be, but you just went above and beyond, Natalie.
Thank you. I love this topic. It's so helpful.
Yeah. So, could you tell us more about what you do in terms of like your offerings for dancers? Because I know you're a coach, and so I'd love to just help dancers become aware of how you work with people and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, of course. So, as you said, I have my podcast. If people are interested in exploring evolution a bit more, that's a really good place to go, because I tend to talk about things from an evolutionary perspective there. I do one-to-one coaching. That's what I'm mainly focused on right now. And I always bring in body-based intelligence into also the mindset work, because they, as we talked about, they go together, really, they complement each other. But the main thing right now, if people have been interested in this conversation, it's probably my ebook, which is called Body-Based Intelligence, 5 Evolutionary Principles for Women. So I wrote it really specifically for women, because if we take it very generally, there's just too many differences between men and women. I would have had to have written like 2 books kind of. So I did this one really for women, and it's kind of going a little bit more into the science and the evolution of the concepts that we talked about today, and just so we can really understand like what's going on with our body, so we can be more compassionate and then make really good decisions, bringing the mind and body together. So yeah, those are the main places. Instagram, I'm there. YouTube, I'm here too. But I love hearing from people. If you want to DM me, I always love a voice note.
Okay, so good. I will link everything that you'd mentioned down below so people can follow you as well. I really appreciate you coming on to share your wisdom. It's very clear that you've been thorough in your research and that you've been practically applying it in your life, and that's where this passion comes from. So I really appreciate you sharing the gift of what you know and your experience.
Thank you for having me, Kirsten. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you, lovely.
Thank you for me. And thank you for watching. Kisses, and stay tuned for next week's episode. Bye, you guys.